G'day team. My name's Ethan. I'm going to be running today's webinar. So the webinar we're going to be doing today is what goes into a successful exercise program. Now, there's a million things that go into this, but we're going to cover what I believe to be the most important things that you need to understand if you were wanting to build your own exercise program, right? So what we're going to cover is understanding individual goals and needs, what components go into an exercise program, principles of the program design, which is going to be like the main things that you need to, I guess, understand for when you're building it, creating a sustainable and enjoyable routine, and then monitoring progress and making adjustments. So how do you actually physically change the program, right? So understanding individual goals and needs. So the first things first, right? With anything that we're building, right? When it comes to health and fitness and life, we need to make sure that we're understanding what we want out of it. So this is kind of done in a way where I think it's important for you to have an honest conversation with yourself about what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it, right? And once you have done that, you'll be able to set the program. And if you don't do this first, you're going to end up just chasing someone else's idea of success, their goals. So you want to make sure you're really trying to progress what you're after. Now, depending on what level of training you're at, what you choose to progress might be more specific than others. But what I mean by that is that someone who is reasonably new to training can have like a general goal to just be healthier and fit, and they'll often find that their strength will improve, their cardio will improve, etc. Where someone who has been training for a really long time might want to be more specific with their program. So they might want to be a really good runner, right? It's usually harder to progress overall if you're already got a really high baseline, where if your baseline's a little bit lower, you can find that you just having a general goal tends to improve most things, which is really good. Now, that's not to say you can't have specific goals if you've been new to training either. It just, like, for example, if you're someone who's been weights training for your whole life and you want to increase strength, then you need to prioritize strength. But if you're someone who just wants to get stronger in general, you've never been training before, even just running might get you stronger, right? So there's different factors to kind of take into consideration. Now, once you've kind of defined this goal for yourself, we're moving to kind of stage two, which is like what components of an exercise program, how do we actually go about building it? Now, something I want you to understand is what I put in here is adaptive energy. So we only have so much adaptive energy we can use per day, per minute, per week, right? Now, the way I want you to think of this is think of this like your recovery bar. Think of this like your health bar, right? When you go and do exercise, you essentially deplete this health bar. And then that adaptive energy will be utilized to make us better at something. This is also known as things like the stress curve, where you're putting stress under your body, and what you recover from makes you better, right? So the thing about that, and the reason I bring this up, is if you're someone who wants to be a really good runner, where should we put our adaptive energy? We should put it into running. If you're someone who wants to prioritize strength training overall, then you should probably put your adaptive energy into more strength training. So the reason this is important when you're building your own program is what we start with a lot of the time is our priorities. So if you think about what is the most important goal for you, that could be losing weight, could be gaining muscle, could be gaining strength, could be performance, could not be. But usually where that priority sits is where we put a lot of our effort. So if you're someone who wanted to increase strength over their cardiovascular performance, you would write all your strength days first, right? And then you would fill in the rest of the days that you might want to train with other things, like the bare minimums, right? And usually there's a bare minimums to an exercise program. So what I mean by that is there's a minimum amount of cardio that's good for you. There's a minimum amount of weights that are really good for you that you need to really get in the program no matter what. So for example, right, let's say we wanted to have a program that we built for ourselves that overall got a stronger, fitter, etc., but had a skewed, I guess, level of intention with the running. So what we might do is we might go, okay, well, we're going to run Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. And on Tuesday, Thursdays, we're going to do our resistance training. So therefore, we're doing 3 versus 2. Now, if you're someone who wanted to prioritize strength training, you might go Monday, Wednesday, Friday for strength training, and then run Tuesdays, go for a bike ride on Thursdays. Or you might just strength train Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? but then you still want to get a little bit of cardio. So we might go for a walk on Tuesday or Thursday. It's just about understanding what our priorities are, whether we want to prioritize cardio strength balance, right? And this can work the same for any type of program. So like you could look at someone who is a sports player. They want to prioritize footy. So they do footy training Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Well, they're going to throw in, okay, well, I need to probably get in a little bit of resistance training because I'm not really getting that through my athletic career. So I'm going to throw in a weight session Tuesday, Thursday. All right. Now, if your goal is less about performance and more about weight loss, tends to be a little bit more relevant, this kind of concept. However, it's kind of nice, even if your goal was weight loss, right? And that's really what you're after. There's no real, I wouldn't get too caught up in the weeds about should I do strength training, should I do cardio training? It's more, but it's nice. It is nice to have a performance goal on top of a weight loss goal or a weight gain goal. That way it gives you, I guess, a bit more resilience when things get hard, or maybe you're not achieving the weight loss that you're after necessarily for that week. You can still have levels of progress, right? If we talk about bare minimums for a second, right? Cardio, these are the general bare minimums that you'd want to have in a program. So there's a difference between activity and exercise. So activity is things like walking, moving my body, how many steps I do I use a standing desk at work, like little things like how often you move, right? Exercise is structured training. So that could be things like footy training. That could be things like going for a run, weights training. Now, a general rule is we want to have, when we talk about structured training, we want to have a minimum of like one cardiovascular structured training a week. All right. That's a minimum. So that would be something like a 30-minute cycle sessions, 30-minute fast walk, depending on your fitness level. But as a minimum goal, 30 minutes a week, right? It's like very baseline minimum. Then you've got from a resistance point of view, we know that progress is a lot better if we're doing twice a week. And anything under twice a week starts to be a little bit harder to really show progress. And we're missing out a lot of opportunity there. So we might do 2 full body 20 to 45 minute strength training sessions. Could be done from home, but all of a sudden those are our minimums, right? So we've got 2 strength training minimums, one kind of 30-minute block, and the rest we can fill in with like activity. We can fill it in with like our preference. So that's another way of kind of doing it, is rather than going by choosing what you want to do first and then filling the rest, you could go, okay, these are the minimums that I need to do, and then I'm going to fill the rest in with what I want to do. Right? That's another way of looking at it. So there's a couple of other little concepts in here that you need to understand. So the first one is progressive overload. So when we think about progressive overload, the simplest way to put this is to refer what we're talking about with adaptive energy, right? So as we do something, we get worse at it. It actually, it causes stress to our body. And then as we improve, we get better at it, right? So as we recover from it, we get better. Now that recovery process is the adaptive energy we were speaking about before. The point of this is, the reason I bring this up in a program is it's really good to understand how you're going to progress through that program and to actually have an idea of what you want to progress. So if your goal was running, you might progress at a 1 to 5% each week. You might have a goal to hit a 10K and then reverse engineer it. But it's important to look towards progression, right? This could be adding new weight. This could be adding new reps. This could be adding new sets. It could be more volume, more intensity. There's so many ways that you can progress your training, but it's important to understand and to have an idea when you are building a program of how that progression is going to look, right? So rather than just randomly going in, just go in there with a little bit of intention, set your program with intention, and you're going to see a lot better results. The stress curve is something else kind of similar to the adaptive curve, and there is more formal names for these, but these are a little bit easier to understand. The stress curve, how I like to refer to this, is when you do that exercise session. So let's say you go for a run, and as you get down and that run starts to kind of tear you down, and you're using your adaptive energy to build up. Sometimes we can go too hard too fast, and that adaptive energy can't really bring us up, and we can end up getting run down, injured, etc. So when you're building a program, and kind of ties into progressive overload, you want to make sure you're only adding a little bit each week, right? You want to pretty much feel good throughout your whole programming. Like for me, myself, when I do running, I'll make sure I'm only adding 1K a week, right? Or maybe even less, maybe more, but very minimal amount of load or intensity so that I can feel good and recover from pretty much the whole way out. So I almost like to feel the same throughout my whole programming, but I'm actually improving each week. So there's just important things to take into consideration. Now, the other part to this building a program, and I'm speaking really quick because there's a lot to cover in 10, 15 minutes with these, but creating a sustainable workout is probably one of the most important things you can factor in. And it's probably the thing that we always don't factor in. And I've probably seen a million clients not factor it in. But if you're not going to stick to it, it's a bad program, regardless of how great the principles are, how great the progressive overload is. If you don't like it, you're not going to do it. So important to understand the best things that you're going to put in the program are probably the things that you're going to enjoy. So if they're not necessarily optimal, they're going to be more possible. So I would still put them in. For example, if you love running, but you feel like cycling is better for you for some reason, run because you like it and you're going to do it, right? So just factor that in and really take that into consideration. The other things I put in here, slow is better. Like I was saying before, small incremental changes is the best way to build a program, and going too hard too fast is the fastest way to ruin a program. Okay. Now, in terms of monitoring progress and making adjustments, the best way to do this is to think about I like to go by like the 1 to 10% rule. So 1% change being the lowest possible change I'm going to make, 10% being the absolute most dramatic change I'm going to make. And I would look to add stress and progress on a weekly by fortnightly basis. So I would try and think about, each week adding some small element of load, intensity, volume, etc. Right? So that could be a longer run, it could be a faster run, it could be a more run more frequently, but some type of load each week and a very, very small amount. Okay. Now, this doesn't mean you need to do this each week, especially when you're new. You could just stick at the same program for 4 weeks. You're probably still going to see a good result. But I like to go in with the mindset of let's make progress, right? And this is pretty much the main principles. So find your bare minimums, choose what you enjoy, add load very, very slowly, and that is really the main things that I wanted to get across with this presentation today. So look, I hope you enjoyed this very short presentation on it. If you are building a program and you're wanting to have some advice with it, you have got your trainers. If you're not seeing your personal trainer, you want to reach out to us, you always can as well. So thank you guys. Enjoy building your programs.